Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live webinar, Enabling Work from Home Best Practices for HR Practitioners. Today, we're going to discuss the state of current events globally, how this has affected companies and employees, and how organizations can apply best practices when implementing policies. We are joined by Trish Surema, Industry Recruiter for Asia Pacific at Microsoft Philippines, Nikki Pernala, HR Manager of TechOne, and last but not the least, Lars Jepsen, CEO and co-founder of TechOne. Now, before we start, we just like to remind everyone that this webinar is meant to help you have a better understanding of doing remote work and how to best establish a work from home scheme. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, hi guys, how are we doing today?
Thank you very much, Arad. I'm doing great. Given all the circumstances, still doing fine here. Thank you very much.
And Trish and Nikki, how are you ladies today?
Yeah, thank you, Ara, for the introduction. All good as well.
Likewise, staying safe and keeping safe, but all good.
That's really great to hear. Now, if you don't mind, let's jump right to it. So my first question, it's going to be for you, Nikki and Trish. With global events happening recently, right? How did this impact your organization? So we're primarily talking about the COVID-19 outbreak, right? Now, what were your observations of the situation? And as HR practitioners, how do you see your roles changing in the next 30 days?
Nikki, do you want to take that on first, or shall I go ahead?
Okay. All right. So same with the other companies, of course, the impact in our organization is quite significant. So right now, how do we see our role as HR in the next 30 days? Of course, my take on that is that with or without this pandemic situation, the role of HR is really changing. So we're not just or we're no longer an operational or administrative type of support. So this time, most especially, we should be more strategic. It's more than just about drafting a policy, recruitment, or processing the payroll. We have to come up and apply strategic plans on how we can, further educate our employees, keep them engaged amidst of this pandemic situation, and make sure that their safety is our priority. Of course, that's not enough. We have to take actions, and we are currently taking actions, and or while keeping in our mind both customers, internal and externals, advantages. So we have to currently we have been practicing our business continuity plan, and we are reviewing our insurance policies.
Yeah, and likewise there, just to add with what is happening in Microsoft, just really emphasizing to bringing in the human in human resources. This is a time wherein it's quite unprecedented, and it's like an uncharted territory at this point, and we have to be on our toes to make sure that we're able to give that clarity and support for our employees. So beyond being able to provide the typical support in HR, I think it's very critical for our roles to expand and begin the conversation of how do we make sure that everybody is still motivated and everybody is more importantly safe during this time, giving them timely updates with what's happening in their respective countries, but also at the same time updates with how that would impact their work as well.
Right. Okay. Now, speaking of which, now we've seen a lot of news where countries have already been implementing community quarantine, lockdowns, and preventive measures to contain the spread of this COVID-19. Now, how did your organization respond to this? And Lars, I would like to direct this question to you. Now, what were your first steps as CEO, and how was this communicated to your organization?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, we have been following the development over the past few months. Personally, I'm traveling quite a bit, and we began to see issues where going somewhere might mean you could not come back or you'd have to stay in quarantine. So we started to see some impact in our organization, and our leadership team started to pull together uh, resources to make sure that we are ready for whatever would happen next. The first indication was really that somebody would go somewhere and coming back would have to stay in a 2 weeks quarantine. And at that point in time, how would we make sure that that person could come back and be able to work? So we are an IT company, and we actually have had work from home policy and work remotely policies and software and equipment and everything for a long time. When I say equipment, really, we're just talking about a laptop or a mobile phone allow you to work remotely today. But more importantly, we fine-tuned our work from home policy, and then based here in Philippines, I think of the countries that we operate, we had more drastic measures put in place last week. So basically all what we had already figured out and agreed on, we could more or less put in practice over the weekend. Of course, yesterday, even more tight measures had been put up. Now, the other thing that we did was that we also communicated to our employees, and yesterday afternoon we had a global town hall meeting. So I will just share one slide. I'll just click on the share so you can see my slide there on that. The global town hall meeting basically allowed us to discuss the initiatives that the company is doing, and the initiatives that we are expecting from the employees, what we can do for each other. I'm not going to go through these slides. You can see them here. I'm not going to detail out what they say, but basically we talked about first what are the things that we have put in terms of policies, in terms of workplace, securing the workplace, and in terms of the insurances and things. We have some locations where people need to go to the office because we are running a BPO operation. It's not a call center, but where people physically need to go to the office and do work. So in those places, make sure that the physical environment is good. Then next, what is that we are expecting from the employee in terms of this situation? It's a difficult time for the company as well. It's not only a difficult time for the employees. So we need everybody to stand behind the company so the company can also move through the situation in a smooth way, especially if you are a smaller to medium-sized business. This kind of event can really make or break your company. Then we talked about what can we do for each other, and I think we're not trying to say anything different than the local governments would say in the different countries, but we're trying to come up with something more practical and something that our employees can really take home and use immediately. I think we identified two different issues. We talk about the coronavirus and the corona blues. And the corona blues is really the depression that can come with this. And sometimes going to the office and being with your colleagues and comrades there help you to get yourself out of a negative situation. But if you're working at home alone, what are the kind of things that we can do to counter that? And then we discussed also what are we going to do for our clients. Our clients need this technology. We are a technology company and we can help our clients work from home. So teaching them what we have been learning ourselves, help them to put their documents in the cloud and how to run their business applications remotely and things like this. So kind of engage our employees in understanding that there's a mission as well. We are like on a mission to help our clients. It's not about anything else than solving problems that are there right now. So this communication went out. We had around, I think, 400-500 people have been listening to this yesterday in a similar call like what we have today, and then with Q&A and so on. and so that's really the first thing we did in terms of a more large scale internally. But the local GM in each country with the HR has been engaging with the management every single day to try to come up with business continuity kind of planning around this to be ready.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. Now, is there anything else you want to add to that point from an HR's
Not that,
perspective?
but I have a few more slides, but I'll keep them for, I'll just close this slide now so you can, let somebody else show some slides, and then we'll go back to, I have two more slides I can discuss later on, but they're a little bit in a different topic, so we'll get
Okay.
to it at that point.
All right. Okay. So, Nikki, Trish, anything from your end with regards to that topic? Anything you'd want to add?
Yeah, so I think what Lars has been doing in his organization is very similar with our approach in Microsoft. What I've been seeing is something that is really helpful for employees here is really frequent updates on what's happening. You know, as the updates are being announced in the over the globe, our SLT are also discussing how we're going to address that. And not only addressing what is happening right in front of us, but what would potentially be happen so that we can give those updates to our employees as soon as possible, so that feeling of uncertainty would be reduced somewhat, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Now, Lars mentioned actually that, in Tech One, the work from home scheme has already been implemented way back then. But lately, there's been more and more buzz about it. Now, as HR practitioners, do you think this is a viable solution for the current problem that we're facing globally? And what are the benefits everyone should consider when thinking about implementing this in the office? And also, how would companies keep employees engaged while ensuring productivity when doing the work from home scheme? I'm sorry, it's a three-part question.
Sorry, that was a bit jam packed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Maybe
three-part question.
just
Okay, so
clarify,
let's
take one
yeah.
question at a time.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
okay.
easier for us.
Let
Yeah.
me just chop it down. Okay, so
Yeah,
the
by
first
the
part,
way, I
yeah.
don't know if everybody is aware is that, we're not all in any place, right? We are all doing this from our home. We are working from home today. I don't
Yes.
even know where is Trish, but, I don't know where you're staying. I'm in my place in Alabang. I think you're in Laguna. Clarice, I don't know where you are. And Nikki is somewhere in Cavite, right? So
Yeah.
we are
Yes,
truly
boss.
working from home right now. We have been on this kind of calls the whole day. So this technology is really like that. The only difference is now we have an audience kind of sneaking into our conversation here.
Right, right.
Otherwise, this is how we have been working today, right?
Right.
Yeah. So can you please just break your questions down so we
Yeah.
one at a
Okay, yeah.
time?
All
Yeah.
right. So as you mentioned, so right now we are all working from home, right? But
Yes.
for other organizations who have not even thought about implementing a work from home scheme before this COVID-19 issue happened, do you think this is a viable solution for them as well in the long run? And what are the benefits everyone should consider?
Okay, so while the two HR professionals are thinking about maybe a more deeper answer to this,
Mm-hmm.
I have been following this work from home for a long time. Maybe some of you can hear on your accent that I'm not Filipino. I'm from Denmark, and many countries in Europe and also the US have been starting work from home for many years for many of the same reasons that we have been talking about in the last couple of years here. The commute is stressing out everybody. It's difficult to focus in an open office, and we kind of went with the open office concept almost everywhere in the world, and now people are sitting together with a lot of people and getting disturbed in their work. So we have already enabled work from home in our organization in the past years. But we have not we have not forced anybody to work from home. It's like a privilege. You can ask for work from home, and then you could be allowed to work from home from your direct manager. But we have basically created an environment where it is seen upon as a benefit and something that you can do if you need that time, or if you have to take care of something at home, for example, instead of taking a day off to wait for a maintenance guy to come and fix the AC, you can work from home and get it done. So that flexibility has also been proven to increase the productivity, but definitely the team lead. When I say team lead, because sometimes it's a team lead, sometimes it's a manager, sometimes somebody else has an obligation to kind of start off the day with a call saying, hey, good morning, how are you? The same way as if you walked into the office, that you don't wake up, you log in, and then nothing happens, for hours and hours, and you kind of have to do your own thing. So I think that's important in this work from home setup. And of course, also the policy. I think this is really what triggered our discussion today, is that we have developed a policy, and what we have learned when we talked about this in some of the HR groups is that a lot of companies don't even have a policy to work from home. So they have to start with a policy before they can even start with the practical stuff. So from a leadership, from a business owner, working from home give us some benefits, some advantages. And I know there's a lot of concern about, do people actually work when they are working from home? We can talk about that later, but that's at least my take on it. Nikki and Trish, maybe you can add to this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Boss Lars, for that. I definitely agree. So, in an HR perspective, I recommend that HR practitioners or an organization should really start taking this into consideration. There are lots of reasons to do so, like what Boss Lars mentioned earlier. In the employee's perspective, it's more of a privilege to them. As first, they get to cut out their commuting time, thus
Mm-hmm.
their stress level can be decreased as well. And then there are employees who said that they can, when they work from home, they are more productive, they are more effective in their
Mm-hmm.
role, and also they save when it comes to transportation costs. Thus, of course, the morale of the employees are higher compared to those working at the office. And then aside
Right.
from that, yeah, from my personal perspective as part of HR in recruitment, it's also a way of branding. So candidates nowadays, especially if we are targeting millennials, the flexibility in work is one of their top priorities. So I know every HR practitioners, especially the recruiters, would agree. So if we can implement a work from home policy in our workplace, we can attract more people, especially in recruitment.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and to add, I think beyond work from home, what is important is the flexible working, that term flexible working,
Mm-hmm.
because when we say work from home, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen every day or whatnot, right? And
Right.
that's
Right.
really
Mm-hmm, correct.
dependent on the policies that you're going to build up. But as an employee, if you have that choice to, oh, okay, I have to pick up the kids at this time at school, really having that flexibility to be able to do that and still being able to do your work, that's very important. Now,
Yes.
if we talk about the benefits, there are a lot of benefits. Like a simple search on the internet would give out a lot of studies from Stanford, from Harvard, that says that there's increased cost savings from an organization standpoint because you don't spend too much on electricity and whatnot. But on an employee standpoint, it saves you a lot of money as well, right?
Yes, yes.
Next is productivity, and that's been mentioned by Lars and Nikki earlier. Employee retention. That's one of the things that has also proven that if you have a flexible working environment, employees tend to stay longer in your organization. And lastly,
Mm-hmm.
job satisfaction as well. So there's a lot of benefits around working from home, but if it's a viable solution, well, I think my answer there is it depends, because
Mm-hmm.
not all organizations are equipped, especially depending on the industry. So, for
Right.
instance, if you work in in an insurance firm, most of the things that you have to do is to, like, you have to file papers and things like that. It's all very physical. But how can we introduce flexible working arrangement? Maybe, you work from home on some days, and there are some days that you go to the office, right? But we also think about the type of job that someone has. So I think it is viable to some extent. It would be great if there are organizations or types of employees who are fully equipped to be able to work from home, really, because we have the technology. But also thinking about, are we talking about the right professions for work
Right.
from home? Are we talking about the right industries from work from home? So it is viable for some professions, I think.
Okay, all right.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
And then Ara, in addition to what Risha's have stated, when yes, it's correct that when crafting a work from home policy, there are things that you should take into considerations. Like for example, it's a case to case basis. Trish is right. So it's not applicable to all organizations or to all role as well. So when you are crafting a work from home policy, you have to fully evaluate the entire situation, the conditions of your company, the role, the positions of the people, and then from there you can decide, or the management can decide which positions can and should be done out of the office. And of course, you'll also have to evaluate if you are equipped with the right tools, equipment, software, etc. that your employees will be needing.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add to that. So 6 months ago, working from home could mean you work at Starbucks, right? It means that you need some time off the office environment, but you cannot really work at home. So you work in a coffee shop, or you work in another kind of open space. But that is not the situation today. Today, working at home means you are working at home because you are not allowed to go out. So we also drafted other policies, not really directly related to work from home, but similar kind of employee benefits. We have a bring your own device policy. So basically, if an employee have already their own laptop when they join the company, we are not going to issue them a company laptop. Or if they want to buy their own laptop, we can give them financial support for that. That means we give them every month an allowance for keeping their own laptop, and they can borrow the money from the company to buy their own laptop. But we cannot allow anybody to just buy any laptop. It has to be laptop, of course, that can run the applications we use in the company. So there are certain standards that we set for those kind of privileges. The same thing for work from home. You cannot work from home. Even you can say, okay, I can work anywhere in the world, but I cannot work from home if I don't have an internet connection, right? Or an internet connection that is reliable to have a call like what we are having now. So we use some applications. We say, okay, you have to run a speed test, and that has to be approved. You have to have minimum this kind of equipment. But I saw a post today in one of the HR groups. One company was listing out that they're doing all this benefit for their staff during this time, and they also allow people to work from home. And the last paragraph was, we are going to do random checks in your homes to see that you are actually there and working. And if you are found that you are not in your home when you have filed from home, work from home, then that is a ground for immediate termination. So please, if you have any errands that
Okay.
you need to run during the day, please make sure that it is reported to the
Mm-mm.
company. So I
Yes.
think that touch on something else, which is the trust. And many of the companies who outsource work, they have software installed on the employee's PC that track every movement, what they do.
yes.
We click everything they click, everything they open, everything they do is tracked. And there's a screen capture done from the screen at random times of the day. So you don't know that every 10 minutes the screen is going to be captured, and that is sent to a backend where somebody is maybe even using AI to see what's happening there. So I think that's a big part of the policy is the trust. I mean, if you're going to allow people to work from home, we have to have some kind of relationship with that employee, that it's a benefit for you. Now, if you don't, like in this situation right now in Philippines, the company has a choice, right? We have a choice to say we have no place for you to work, so you're going on unpaid leave. So getting to work from home and making a salary is actually a privilege. So we need to make sure that everybody understand that the company is also in a difficult situation. It's not only the employees, right? I mean, we might not need to eat as a company, but we need to invoice our clients. We need to receive our payment. We need to deliver our goods. So there's a lot of complications for everybody, not only for employees, right? So we are in this together, and together we can solve this situation. We can maybe even come out stronger. If I can just shift a little bit to what we have been doing on some other things, we have been talking a lot about digital transformation, right? I'll see if I can share my screen here now. I have to click here first, share my screen, and I think this should be the one. Okay, you should be able to see the screen now with the presentation, but I think it's the same presentation as before, so I'll just change the slide. So what we have been doing is we have been talking about digital transformation, and digital transformation, can you see the right screen? Is that the right slide now with the digital print here? Okay, all right. So we have been talking a lot about digital transformation in the last few years, that you use technology to drive employee engagement. For example, we are talking about everybody has a mobile phone, everybody's using Grab or Uber or whatever, and ordering their food online. And these are the kind of things that the companies should have been taking this kind of steps already. So when the crisis hit, in this slide we're using a fire because that's a good dramatic show of a disaster, but of course the disaster now is kind of you cannot see it, right? But disasters, and I guarantee you there's still fires going on, right? We are still waiting in Philippines for the big earthquake or the Taal volcano that will explode, on top of this coronavirus. So we need to be, as an organization, ready for that. I think technology is there. We need to make sure that our employees are trusted and they know what to do and how to deliver their work. I think the KPIs, the expectations have to be understood and agreed so we can trust, and when they are home, they deliver. I mean, it's more about, actually, it's not about attendance anymore. It's about, delivering the agreed outcome.
Yeah, productivity.
Yeah, productivity and outcome is a talk. It's we actually have tools that we are using. I can just show you the next slide just to, if it's appropriate now. I don't know. We are not selling anything here. This is tools that we are using. I just asked somebody to put the logos on the slide. So we use products like Riek and Teammatrix.
Sorry, Lars. It's not actually showing.
Okay.
Yeah. We actually can't see the tools.
Okay, let me see if I can.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what you can see, but I will try again. So
there we go. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, all right. So the tool that we use internally is not. So we use things like Riek and Teammatrix, where our employees are actually logging their work. And it's not a matter of controlling what they do, but if we, for example, give a quotation to a client that this job will take 100 hours, then we need to have some kind of tool to make sure that the hours are being spent. So those kind of things we require them to use when they get home and they work from home. They still have to log their time, what time they're using on which project. If, for example, we have a project management tool, they still have to use those tools if they were in office. Then we use Microsoft Teams. An example is this call, to be able to collaborate better. We use Inadoc for our paperless, like Tricia was saying. What good is it that you are allowed to work from home if your documents are in the office? But Inadoc is a document management solution where all your documents are in the cloud, and when you are working from home, you can access those documents. Flodo is a productivity tool that allows an organization to create workflows, so you can send approvals to people who might not be, in the same office as well. And lastly, we are using an application called MyHCM, which is an HR application where you can, do your KPIs. You can file for leave. You can check in and check out. And we have enabled work from home in that. It was not a feature in the product, but we have created a special leave called work from home leave. So when we look at the calendar of everybody in the company, we can see who is on leave that day, and when we open their leave, we can see what kind of leave. So one of the problems before, you'd come into the office and some person is not there, and unless their supervisor is there, you would not know why that person is not around. Are they sick? Are on their vacation? Or are they on work from home? Or what? Have they been met with an accident going to the office or so on, right? So now we have a full control of people who are around or people who are not around, and if they're not around, why they're not around. So they can file for a work from home, and it's going to be registered as it's not going against any leave credits or anything, but it's going to be registered in the calendar. So these are the tools that we have used beyond, having the laptop and the mobile phone, that we have been able to bring this together. This one, along with the policies. So the policies and the tools go hand in hand to ensure that people can continue to work from home. Azure is Microsoft Cloud. We put our applications there. So again, we have nothing in the office. I actually have to go to the office earlier to pick up a webcam because I had left it in the office last week, but there was nobody there, and that was the only reason I had to go there. And this will enable you to do this. And all these products are just what we are using. You could use almost so many competitive products. Every single name here has maybe 5, 6, 10 competitors behind that could be better to suit your job, but this is what we have done. So that's just how I think you should approach it. Work from home is going to be a standard. Whether it's because of there's a disaster, it's going to be to retain talent, increase productivity. Even the government in Philippines have been working on a work from home law or remote working law for the last time, and it has been accelerated now because of this situation, but it was already in the works. Nobody wants their employees to commute 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening for nothing, right? So anyway, I talked a lot, so I'll leave to the HR professionals who might have some more insight on some of this. I will stop my sharing of the screen now.
Okay, so I actually have a question for you guys. So earlier we talked about the importance of really keeping track of your employees. The importance of trust between employer and employee. Now, for managers, what are the best practices they should observe and or implement to keep their teams on track? Aside from the tool that you install on the computer wherein they take screenshots, really just like monitor every movement of the employee. But like aside from that, what other things could managers do?
I can take a hit on that. So so I think echoing with what Lars said, I really think that the two critical ingredients for a successful flexible remote working setup are trust and empowerment. So if we talk about trust first, let's ask the question, do we trust our employees to do their work even if we don't see them, right? So think about, if you're a manager, think about, would it make more sense if you kind of track everybody, like if they're doing their work now or whatnot, or is it better to be a bit more goal oriented? I mean, it's good that you're doing time in and time out, and if that's a requirement for your company, that's totally okay. But also, sometimes studies have shown that even if somebody is at work for 8-9 hours, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're productive as well. So maybe managers can consider setting a weekly goal or weekly target, and be a bit more goal oriented with how we want to complete our tasks or give out our impact, rather than, oh, did you log in, were you working for 9 hours that day, right? So so that's the trust part. On the empowerment part, we think about, again, do we have the tools and do we have the tasks? But also at the same time, what I've been seeing with the new, like, managers kind of doing work from home, they tend to focus on the day-to-day work. I have been seeing some organizations feeling like it would be critical for them to look at how many of these items did you do per day. So, for example, in recruitment, how many candidates did you screen on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday? And then would require their employees to submit an end of day report each and every day. And sometimes to get an end of day report, it would be justified with human error sometimes, and it would take maybe like 30 minutes to prepare when you could be doing something else that would help with the goals, right? So instead of doing like a day-to-day check-in, trust also comes in again. Is it better for us to give them the flexibility as to how they're going to achieve their goals, as long as you focus on the actual goals that you're trying to kind of set up for that week?
Okay. All right. Nikki, do you have your opinion on that?
Yes, yes. So I agree with Lars and Trish. So the key thing to have a successful work from home policy is to ensure that the managers can measure the outcomes of work. So the productivity, it can be measured in a number of ways, whether on the time spent on the project, like what Boss Lars have mentioned a while ago. So we're using a different tools or platform to do that. But
Right.
uh, the thing is, when the manager can measure the outcomes after his or her subordinate performs the work remotely, and she or he got the desired result, then that's a better solution or situation than trying to measure the people based on number of hours that they have worked. So our current practice in Tech One, what Boss Lars have mentioned as well, is that we're using this specific platform wherein, if your work from home filing is approved, you'll just have to utilize the comment section and then put there your goals for that day or for that week, for example. It's called task accomplishment report. And then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you do it, how many hours you've spent on it, as long as you have the output. So I think that's where trust and empowerment comes in.
Okay. All right. Well, that's really, really great. And I actually have one question here, but we do have a lot of questions coming in from the audience. And I actually have my last question is actually similar to the one that our audience is asking. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into the Q&A? I think we have like a lot of really good questions here. Now, the first question that we have, you mentioned that work from home is not applicable to all organizations. However, with a quarantine in place, how can we equip these organizations in these trying times?
So I can answer that. So I have a
Okay.
friend who have a restaurant, okay? He cannot have his kitchen staff and his waiters and any of them actually work from home unless he can convert his business into some kind of a food delivery service company. And I don't even know if I have no idea about the regulations or anything, but they have a restaurant in a mall. The mall is closed down because of the situation, and they are not able to work. There's not probably anybody. Maybe there's an accountant. Maybe if it's a bigger restaurant chain, there will be some admin people who could work from home. But the vast majority of those people could not continue to work, right? If you are in a retail business and the mall is closed, your people cannot work from home. So there are certain jobs in our own company, Tech One. We have an office admin person who is making sure the office is clean, making sure, yeah, basically cleaning the office and making sure that everything is in place there. That person cannot do that from home. So of all of our, I think 50, 60 employees here in Philippines, we have one person who needs to be in the office for that. But if there's nobody else in the office, of course, that person has nothing to do there. Then we have a BPO service. A BPO service is relying on clients. So if the client is locked down, our BPO staff cannot work there. So there's not much they can do from home as well. So in our company, at least, there's going to be some people who are not able to work from home. So the company then have to decide together with these employees what are the adequate measures to take. Are we going to ask them to take their leave now? Some companies might not pay salaries. Other companies might pay salaries. It all depends from company to company. I think in our company we have taken kind of a let's wait and see approach, because the directions that we have received have changed dramatically almost from one day to the other. So on Fridays we are told something, and then we made our plans. On Monday we are told something else. So today is Tuesday. Maybe we will see how things will go in the next few days, and then we'll start to take our actions on that. But definitely there are positions that people cannot work from home. But if you talk about office admin, and if you talk about IT companies, if you talk about most of the office-based staff should be able to work from home if the company has provided the tools.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very difficult question to answer, Ara, just because I'm not sure what the context is of that particular person who asked. But I see organizations in three different levels, right? Number one, organizations that cannot totally work from home. So if you're like in a service oriented organization, you can't do remote work. That's very difficult to do, especially with the lockdown. Now there are the next level or the next layer are organizations who could partially work from home. And really I'm not sure how their SLT would be taking this on. But just to share with what other organizations are doing is that if they limit people going to work, and there are critical folks who needs to be in the office, then at least there would be a lot less number of people in the office, right? And that would be a bit more safer. So how do we equip them if they're not yet ready? I think they may not be ready because they might not have the budget. So if that is the case, I think there are some solutions that are free. You could go for like a 30-day trial or whatnot and see if that works for your organization, and experiment from there. But what's really important is there is that communication that's happening within the SLT and being cascaded down to the employees, so they know what they are supposed to expect and they know what is potentially going to happen. And being open, like the SLT being open with, hey, we're not yet sure with how we're going to do this, because this is very new for everybody. But also at the same time being empathetic for other people as well, in terms of, oh, okay, we can't give you a solution now, but this is what we're trying to do. And we want to make sure that you're safe. So just going back to making sure that we put our employees first and making sure that they're safe first before thinking about how do we make the business as usual practices as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. Now we have another question, and I think this is for you, Trish and Nikki. Is it a myth that HR as a whole is reluctant to adopt to modern technology?
HR as a whole is reluctant to adopt to modern technology.
Yes.
I'm not sure where the question is really coming from, but there are some aspects of HR that we can't fully digitize in a local Philippine perspective. if this person is coming from Philippines, because there's still a lot of solutions or a lot of government things that we need to do physically, right? But even with those physical requirements, a lot of the functions in HR could actually be digitized. I don't think, I think it depends on the culture of the organization.
Okay.
And if the organization feels like the HR aspect is something that they should focus on. Because if we think about, the different arms of HR, if we talk about training could be done virtually for sure. And then if we talk about recruitment, I recruit, I'm based in Philippines, but I recruit all over APAC. And really how I'm able to do that is through calls, virtual calls, and through emails and things like that. So those are totally possible. If we talk about HR consulting, again, it's a human thing, right? Like it's a lot of conversations, a lot of decision makings and whatnot, and could still be done virtually. I think in HR, there are some aspects that are better to be done face to face. But at the same time, I think it is definitely possible for it to be digitized. If the person who asks the question, like if you have any specific aspects of HR that you want to ask about, just put that in the questions so that we can try to address it a bit later.
Okay. All right. Nikki, do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, so same with Trish as well. I think it's yes, it's a case to case basis. There are facets or aspects in HR that, of course, you'll have to do face to face. But the thing is, currently our setup or our current practice in our company in Tech One is where our direction is, since we're leading in terms of digital transformation. We're planning, or we are in the middle of uploading or scanning or using technology to make HR documents and everything in cloud base.
Right.
So um currently our practice as well is being done online. Like for example, our recruitment, it's being done online, either one-on-one or panel interview with the applicants. So we're using Microsoft Teams for that. And we're planning also to definitely do job offers virtually as well. So the setup for this is effective for both parties, for the applicant and the recruiters. So for the applicants, of course, same with the work from home, it saves time and it cuts down their transportation costs.
Right.
And they can take the call on their most convenient place they call home. For the recruiters, or for the HR, it alleviates the administrative burden, or it reduces the paperwork as well. So we'll just have to engage electronically to the applicants. Plus, the thing also here in recruitment or online recruitment, if it can be done, or if all will do it online, is us as a technology company. By doing this, we can also gauge how technically equipped the applicant is. And for the employers, it reduces the time and cost for the recruitment activity. So I think Trish is I agree with Trish that there are some aspects of HR processes that can be done online, but should also, there are also things that should be done face to face or physically.
Right. Okay. And Trish, actually, we have one question here from the audience. If you could just like give a summary of your answer. So, is face-to-face still a compelling need for recruiting talent? And how do you go about this? This is actually directed to you, Trish.
Okay, got it. So, I'll share with everybody my experience in recruitment. Just to share with you, almost like 95% of my roles are outside of Philippines. And if we look at the entire recruitment process, first step is to have, those manager meetings. So that one, check. You can meet up with your managers by picking up the phone or going on Microsoft Teams, right? The next part is the sourcing piece. So for sourcing, you don't really need to meet anyone face to face. You know, you go to your career site, screen people and whatnot. So check, you can do that virtually. The next piece is on interviews. Now, before all of the situation that's happening with COVID right now, when I set up interviews for my hiring managers and my candidates, I always prefer for them to meet face to face. However, because of the situation, we want to make sure that not only our employees are safe, but also our candidates are safe. So they're not risking unnecessarily their health for them to get a job in Microsoft. Mm-hmm. So we have transformed and kind of mandated everybody to move from face-to-face meetings to virtual meetings. Now, for this to be effective, you have to coach your managers. So if you ask yourself, if you've met somebody face-to-face versus you've met somebody virtually, sometimes the rapport building, if you've met somebody virtually, may not be as strong as when you have met somebody face-to-face, right? So you have to coach your interviewers and your managers to make sure that there are no biases around that. Also coach them how could they effectively interview virtually as well, because things like body language and whatnot, those are very hard to read, even if you have a video call. There was this funny video that I saw before of somebody interviewing in a company, and in the reflection of their glasses, they were actually reading off the answers of their interview answers as well. Mm-hmm. But if you transform and go to like a video interview rather than a phone interview, then at least that is that's a better solution than not seeing the person at all. But if your only option in your organization is to do a phone interview, then you have to train your interviewers to be able to pick up these cues and to be able to fully assess somebody's capabilities beyond a potential script that somebody might be reading, and it goes back to trust as well, right? Like, do we trust our candidates that they're doing the right thing? Mm-hmm. Now, after interviews, the next item there is going to be the job offer. Like I said, 95% of my roles are outside of Philippines, and even if I do have roles in Philippines, it's quite rare for me to meet somebody face to face to extend an offer. More often than not, that is a 30-minute meeting. What is critical though, so if you're in a country like Indonesia or Thailand, wherein the currencies are quite high, like there's a lot of numbers that you have to read, my suggestion is for you to send the offer details or the offer summary like 5 minutes before the call, so that you can give that person a heads up. And like as you walk through the offer and explain the components of the offer, at least they see the numbers in front of them, and they're not going to be like stressing out in the back end just trying to write down the numbers and things like that. And you can actually focus on a conversation. And after the offer, more often than not, people wouldn't be accepting an offer immediately, right? So what do we do about that? Again, let's use technology. I typically chat with my candidates after the offer, give them a day or two and then just check in with them if they haven't responded back to me, see if they had any problems and things like that. So not really being afraid to pick up the phone and start those conversations is really helpful for you to be able to kind of put on a quote unquote Band-Aid solution if you can't do face-to-face yet. I hope that answered the question. I just went through the entire recruitment process.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the person who asked that is very well satisfied with the question. With your answer. Now we have one more, and I think this is very interesting. And Lars, I think you could also give your 2 cents on this. The question is, what would be the best performance management method for a large-scale organization? In a remote, this is in a remote working context. How would OKRs help?
Um, yeah, I just struggled a bit. I saw the question. I didn't understand the OKR. What does it mean?
Based on research, I think it means objective and key results.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry. Yeah, in our case, we have this product called MyHCM, which we have also deployed to some of our clients. And there's a KPI module in this where the employee and the team lead or the manager set up the results that are going to be monitored and updated, and is then the responsibility of the employee to update that. So that means that the manager can look at a dashboard and see where the different team members are in terms of their performance management. But it's like a self-managed update. So for example, if I'm a salesperson and my target is 100, I'm the one who will update my KPIs in that system with what I have achieved. So when you then have the meeting, obviously you are going to discuss those achievements, and you have a constant overview of all of your members and your organization in terms of achieving your organizational goals as well. So that I think the best thing to do here with this is to find a solution like what we are using, where you can measure the KPIs and update that. I think that's what most large organizations should be using.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for that, Lars. Now we have one more question here, and this is actually really interesting as well. What are some of the best practices in introducing work from home or remote working to an organization or culture that has not practiced such flexibility before? I think especially with like old school companies, probably.
So while I'm sure that Nikki and Trish might have some experience from other organizations, we internally actually have that challenge because we are
Mhm.
operating in different countries, and some of the countries are very progressive, very dynamic, and want to do the latest and want to work from home, and people are motivated. Like Philippines, a lot of people are already working from home. They're freelancers, and there's a lot of that already here in the culture. Other countries is like the management will say, how can I know they work if they are not in the office? So we are back to the old school. So I think it's a change management thing, and if your organization want to go there, then you have to go through that process. Most of the time, it starts with the owners or the top management more than the employees. Uh, I find very few employees who doesn't like to see that they can work from home or have flexible work arrangement. It is normally older business owners or more conservative business owners who like to see the attendance and who like to see that people clock in and clock out, and that's how we are paying them. And it also comes a bit into the framework of the law with overtime and these kind of things, which are difficult to measure when people are working at home. So I guess we have experience in both sides, but we are driving towards that flexible work arrangement because it's good for the employee, it's good for the company, and it's good for everybody else. So, I'll hand over to the professionals.
Hey, so I think that's a really good point. And to add to that, for the person who asked, I'm not sure if you'll like my answer because it's a bit of a long-winded answer. What I see is effective with Microsoft is when we built the culture of flexible working, it was really built from the foundations of our values. So that's going to be my advice. Think about the values of your organization and see if that would be able that if you could relate that to your work from home policy. So let me give you an example. So Microsoft values are respect, integrity, and accountability. So respect, we recognize that the thoughts, feelings, and backgrounds of others are as important as our own. Number two, integrity. We're honest, ethical, and trustworthy. And number three, accountability. We accept full responsibility for our decisions, actions, and results. And because of that, flexible working environment with an employee being accountable on the actual core goals and impact that they are to achieve is there. Now, it is further underlined with how we actually assess our employees. So at the end of the review cycle, I think other companies would do it every quarter. Some would do it like every half a year. But for us, every time we do our review cycle, we ask the question. In spite of the remote working and flexible work arrangement that we have, what have you accomplished in your goal? What have you accomplished in your day-to-day job, right? So how we assess people is also geared on our values as well. So see if you could connect, flexible working, or rather how you're working, to the results and how you assess those results. If you're able to connect those two, then at least they're speaking with each other, right? And at the end of the day, you're not assessing people based on the number of hours that they went to the office, but based on the results that they were able to present for that quarter or for that half of the year.
Okay, it sounds good. Now, just one last question from the audience, because we're actually running out of time, but this is a good one. So, in relation to the current situation, and now that work from home is being introduced, can you name or maybe recommend a few apps that could track the employee's productivity? Also, it was mentioned earlier that this app could even document from time to time the employee through his or her very own laptop. I think this is the screenshot capture. What app can do that? Thank you.
So I think I'm the one who put my feet in hot water there. So those are the tools we are not using. So we are not using any screen capture. We are not going and knocking on anybody's door to check if they are really working. So we are in IT. In IT, this kind of a very flexible and open relationship with the employees is a norm. And if we are going to knock on, Ara's door to check if he's working or not, first of all, it takes out the productivity from the rest of us, because we'll have to visit all the people who work from home. I don't even think with the current lockdown is allowed. But it is not the point of the work from home arrangement. If you want to check, I mean, you can search. There's many outsourcing companies who are doing it. For example, if you're using a virtual assistant based in Philippines, you might have these kind of tools to make sure that they are working on the hours that you are paying them to work for. But we don't use those tools. We are going to share, I guess, the slides, but I can share just the slide again that I was showing earlier.
Yeah.
So these are the slides that these are the tools we are using. And in terms of time tracking, we are using something called T-Metric, and that's really very much used for software developers. It's integrated with some of the software development tools and the check-in and check-out and those kind of things. And we're also using a product which is kind of overlapping or competing. We are using that a product called Rike. That's the one in the top with the WRIKE. Those two products, we are not selling them. So, you can just search them up and find them, and you can then buy them online. So Rike we are using both in our software and project team, and we're also using it in our marketing team. So people like Ara, who's on this call, she's using that to log, what project she spent time on. It's not really to control her, but it's also to judge the outcome. That how come we don't have any time to do anything in our marketing department, and it's because Lars is always asking for presentations to be done. Now we can see, okay, so how much time did you actually spend on making presentations for Lars? Or we give a client a proposal for a project, and we can see that we are overrunning on time. The similar way, like if you are a contractor or construction company, use project management tools. So those are the two tools we use in terms of time capture, time management. But it is I think T Matrix and Wrike both have elements of automatic time capture, meaning application based. If you're a software developer and you're going to use this specific software development tool, it captures the amount of hours that you spend on that tool. Now, it doesn't mean that you have been productive. I think Trish, she was talking about that earlier. Just because you are, sitting in front of your computer doesn't mean that you are doing anything productive. So it has to be linked up with targets. And in software development, we have these sprints, and in sprints, the developers, they commit to taking off, specific tasks, and then those tasks have a specific time allocated to them. So that's really whether a developer then spend 10 hours on one thing or 5 hours, it's up to him. If he has to spend too much time, he will run out of time and he will not be able to do his work. So then that will become a performance issue. But we don't have any screen capture products. But I'm sure that you can just search and it will come up left, center, and right, because there's plenty of tools like that to monitor remote workers, even kids, to make sure that you capture the screens of your kids when they are working in their PCs or laptops at home, to make sure they're not doing anything they shouldn't do and things like that. I'm sure you will find easily plenty of tools, but these are the tools we are using.
Right, right. And I just want to mention real quick, my HCM. It's actually a really good tool for, logging in, logging out, especially during this work from home setup that we have. So we can easily like log in via a fingerprint scanner on your phone and then log out. You can also file your leaves on your mobile phone. So it's really, really handy. So yeah, I just wanted to give my 2 cents in that. And that's it. So unfortunately, we don't have any more time for other questions, but we really thank everyone for all the engaging questions, and we welcome more. You can just email in your questions at aliana@tech1global.com, and we'll be happy to answer all of them for you.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
Just before you just end up, I just wanted to let you know that we are running those digital transformation seminars as well, which is not specifically on working from home, but how HR can benefit in digital transformation. So that's one of I saw a few people who are asking they couldn't see the slide with the fire, because it was just basically it was the whole slide deck shown at once. But there is around 20-25 slides that we do in that presentation, which talks about why HR need to digitally transform, and
Right.
being ready to work from home is just one of the things. It's not the only thing. This is not the only reason why we are driving digital transformation for HR. There's many other good reasons for that. But of course, now the most important thing right now is work from home. So that's why we have kind of captured that separately. And without, demonstrating any products or discussing any specific technology, the purpose of this specific meeting was just to share our experience with the community that is facing similar issues like us. So I also want to thank Trish for joining us here. Thank you very much for that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
It's my
Trish.
And I'll bring
pleasure.
it back and to you, Ara, to
All
Laura.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lars. And yes, we do have other quote unquote seminars or resources available for everyone who is interested to learn more about digital transformation. And so I thank you, Lars. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Trish. And thank you to everyone who is watching and who have taken part in our webinar. We look forward to having you again in our next webinars that we're going to have. And we look forward to seeing you guys there. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Stay
Bye.
Bye.
safe. Bye-bye.